Hi everybody, this is Mark Hamre, principal at Wildwood Elementary, and this presentation is a copy of a presentation that was done on September 27th for a parent information night on our new Read Well curriculum. We are really excited to provide some information about our new reading curriculum, and that's what this presentation is really intended to do. Inform you as parents about what's happening at Wildwood, give you some ideas of how you can support your children, and I'll also at the end give you a link to a website that will give you some home activities that you can do with your children. To give you a background, Mahtomedi went through a district literacy curriculum review back in 2009, and it was a 2-year review. And it was a K-12 review of our reading, writing, and literacy arts. And what we decided to do at the elementary level was to focus our first year of that review on writing, and that resulted in us adopting the Being a Writer program that many of you are familiar with from last year. This last year was a focus on reading. And so we spent a year as a committee, both a small committee of Wildwood teachers as well as a larger committee that was district-wide, looking at various curriculum. And some of the things that we were looking for in that curriculum was certainly strong alignment to the Minnesota State standards and the Common Core standards. We wanted a program that was research-based with a strong track record. We wanted to meet the needs of all learners, not just the students in the middle, not just the students near the bottom, and certainly not just the students near the top, but something that we could use that would be a consistent approach for everybody. And then finally, we wanted it to contain strong primary level reading components that were reported in a National Reading Panel report that was done in 2000. This report done in 2000 was a milestone in education as far as reading instruction. A huge research process took place at the federal level, and what they determined was explained in this second bullet here, where it says the panel determined that the effective instruction includes teaching children to break apart and manipulate the sounds in words. This is called phonemic awareness. So it's really helping people understand and helping kids understand that sounds make up words, and to identify what those sounds are. Then teaching that these sounds are represented by letters. So that sound of T is represented by the letter T. Then having the kids build off of that to put those sounds and letters together to form words, and having those kids read those words out loud. And then certainly as you build from there, teaching the fact that words have meaning. So to be able to read something with meaning, to be able to put the right words together to form sentences. And then finally, when those sentences are put together and multiple sentences are put together in the form of a paragraph or small book, that there is comprehension. So the reading panel really focused a lot of its efforts on what goes into a solid reading program. And these are the components that were identified in that study. These became known as the Big Five. Phonemic awareness, or the sounds. Phonics is associating sounds with letters. Fluency, putting the sounds into words. And fluency is a big part of this new curriculum, as we'll find out. And then attaching a meaning to those words in terms of vocabulary, and then putting those words together into sentences and having the kids understand what that means. And there is explicit instruction in all these areas to help the kids develop those skills. What was our process? A Wildwood team researched various curricula and found Read Well to best fit our needs and our wants. We spoke with other districts. We spoke with districts in Oregon, Iowa, and others that were using the program. Last year, we conducted a small pilot in kindergarten and in first grade and in some second grade classrooms to see if it really does what we had read about and we were hoping that it would accomplish. We didn't want to just take the word of people, but we wanted to actually see it in action. And we were able to do that for periods of last year. Once we talked about it, and I remember vividly last spring pulling a group of of teachers together that were piloting the program and having a conversation openly, just saying, what do you think? And the results and the comments that were said by those teachers were very, very positive. A lot of positive comments coming from the parents, comments from the kids, but the teachers themselves felt like this was a very, very strong program. I recall one of our teachers in first grade making a comment that with the older curriculum that we were being using, knowing that we had to attack the big five, we were finding ourselves drawing material from many, many different sources, that there was not a curricula that was complete enough that would really house all that in place. And I remember him saying that this curriculum he felt was one of the best he had seen, that really was almost like a package deal in terms of how do we meet the big five. And that was a very strong statement, because that was something that we were looking for, and I would say that that feeling was felt by many of those teachers that were piloting the program. So based on that, we went with the decision to go with Readwell. This past summer, we sent a team of teachers to a national training conference that was conducted by the authors of the curriculum. This was not just any ordinary conference. Typical national conferences, publishers and organizations and curriculum writers and so forth will send representatives who speak on their behalf. This conference was directly led by the authors of the program, in this case Marilyn Sprick. And what was really neat about it is that we were actually able to sit across the table and have individual conversations with Marilyn and her team of authors, and have down-to-earth conversations about this program. We were able to share information about our school, share a little bit of information about the dynamics of our system, how we use literacy blocks and so forth, and they were able to share from their experience and from their research how a program like this could fit and work well for us. Once we got back from the training, which was in July, we then brought in a trainer from the Readwell Corporation who did a training for our entire staff, and that was done during workshop week at the beginning of the school year. So what is Readwell? Readwell is a K-2 primary level core reading program. It is a focused program on early reading skills. Right now the program is only set up for kindergarten through second grade, but there is in the works a third grade component to it. And so as we started to look again at different curricula, we felt that with the high focus that it has with the primary level reading core ideas, again, a good fit for a way we're set up with Wildwood. The program's intent is to move students from learning how to read to reading to learn. And of course that's the goal of any program, but we're very hopeful and very confident that this program will meet those needs, to getting our kids to become comfortable with their reading so that it turns to a reading to learn objective. We also found that it does have a strong emphasis on the big five. And what was very interesting to us is that it is a mastery-based program. And this is a little bit different than some reading programs, and this is one of the things that really caught our eye. In that, at the beginning of the year, we will give, and we have given, a placement assessment to all of our kids. And the placement assessment is very diagnostic. It is very prescriptive in terms of what needs to take place and what the children should be able to do at various levels. The idea of it being mastery-based is that the children are placed at various levels, which fits very well with our literacy block, based on the skills that they are able to do. However, if a child is missing a foundational skill, that child then is placed in a very conservatively at a level that attacks that particular skill, and that child will not move up to the next level until all the basics are covered, or in other words, that they are mastered. And what we will do is we will be working with the kids to make sure those foundational skills are all covered, and that the child has mastered them before we'll move a child on to the next level. To give you an example of some of the things that we were noticing here at Wildwood, and it particularly showed up at second grade level, is we were seeing kids who were actually outwardly reading at a high level. They could read large passages, they could read fairly quickly, and appeared to have fairly good fluency and so forth. But what we noticed was when it came to words that they had not been exposed to, we call them either nonsense words or just longer words that require sounding out, that they were really struggling with those words. And it showed up in writing, and it showed up in their spelling. And so we started to look at it, and we started to take a peek and see what could be causing that. And what we discovered was that the kids, in this example, were lacking some of the phonic skills that were required, which is a foundational skill of learning how to put sounds and letters together to form words. So in this particular case with Readwell, those kinds of deficiencies or those kinds of skills that might be lacking will be picked up much earlier in the process to make sure that the kids have a very strong foundational skill. We also are hearing from high school, our own in fact, that some of the kids that are struggling with their reading, as you start looking at it, oftentimes it is due to the fact that they are struggling sounding out words and putting sounds together to form words. And again, phonic skills. And then finally, we wanted to make sure, and we have seen that this is very research-based, research-validated instructional strategies, and the emphasis of Readwell is to develop strong, fluent, independent readers. Readwell, as far as the reading, is broken down into some different parts. For example, I'm going to focus on the column under reading. We have what's called Readwell Kinder, which is broken down into whole group instruction, which in kindergarten will take place in the homeroom. And then based on the assessments, we will then use our literacy blocks to group kids together based on where they are at with their reading. And so all the specific reading instruction that is at that specific child's instructional level will be taking place in that small group. In first grade, we had the regular Readwell 1 with many different units, and then we also had Readwell 1 Plus, which is for our high-level kids. In the second grade, we have what's called Readwell 2 Fluency Foundations, which is it's for kids who, for whatever reason, may need a quick review of some of the higher-level Readwell 1 stuff to make sure that those foundational skills are developed. We then had Readwell 2, and then, like first grade, we had Readwell 2 Plus, which is for our higher-level readers. Another thing that was really attractive to us was its rich use of literature. One of the things that just about all the curriculum are offering now is a nice mixture of fiction and nonfiction materials. This is a change, because if you go back 10 years ago or more, there was a much higher emphasis on fiction, whereas that has shifted to more nonfiction type of materials, and research is showing that kids need to be able to learn how to better understand nonfiction type materials. You'll see on the screen here a list of some of the books that are part of the curriculum, and you'll see that there is an emphasis in some cases on science and social studies, so that we are able to embed some of the cross-subject areas right within the reading. For the kids' sake, they might be working on reading and not even know it because they're studying science and social studies. With the strong array of strong literature and so forth, we also see this as a great opportunity to build on knowledge. This example that's on the screen happens to be more of a geography or in some cases science kind of a thing, where we can introduce kids to places. We can introduce kids to the earth that we share with the various insects and animals. We can share specific information about time, which gets into a little bit of history. But again, it's all incorporated right within the reading curriculum. What we are liking about Readwell, we've been at it now for a short period of time, but what we're starting to see and feeling more and more comfortable with is It has a strong, precise instruction that is geared specifically for K2 students. It's mastery based, which is what I spoke about earlier. It uses the same curriculum for all levels of students. This was a big piece for us because with our earlier curriculum, we were really choosing and searching for various kinds of curricula that would meet our lower level kids, which was oftentimes a different type of curriculum that we are using for our tier 2 kids, which are just below grade level, which oftentimes was a different curriculum that we used for our grade level kids, which was oftentimes different than a curriculum that we used for our high level kids. Obviously we were using a base component so that there wasn't absolutely completely different, but our supplementing was going on that was very, very extensive. This program will allow us to use Read Well with minimal supplements, and it'll meet the needs of all of our kids. What's also interesting about this program, it is multiple entry points. And what that means is that when we give an assessment to our kids, a placement assessment, that it will tell us at which unit we should start that child. So if a child is ready to start first grade at Unit 8, we will start them at Unit 8. That means that the placement assessment is saying that this child has all the building blocks and all those foundational skills in their repertoire so that that child can successfully start at Unit 8. For those kids that need to start at Unit 3, we will start them at Unit 3. So as I'm saying with the multiple entry points, and again fits in very well with our literacy blocks, the multiple entry points work very well to meet the needs of each individual child. Fifth on the screen is the Strong Assessment Program. And this assessment program helps guide our teaching instruction and the student placements. This year, this fall, we used basically 3 different assessments. So we have a nice picture of the kids with a strong emphasis on what Read Well is telling us as far as which unit to start with. But we continue to use our MAP assessments, and we use an oral reading fluency assessment called DIBBLES. And as I mentioned here, number 6, it does fit very well with our literacy block philosophy, which we have found very successful throughout the years. Phonics and its connection to comprehension. Research, and this is coming from the National Reading Panel, has said that phonics instruction significantly improves children's reading. And this program provides a very systematic and explicit instruction on how to read fluently and how to comprehend. I think for many of us, it became easy to say to our children, read this book and tell me what it was about. And if they could tell us what it was about, we felt that their comprehension was pretty strong. And to some degree that can be a measure, but what we're finding is that there is very explicit ways to teach how a child comprehends a passage, or teach them how to remember what that book was about. It's leading questions like trying to predict what the next page is going to be about, using the picture clues to ask them before they read it, what do you think is going to happen here? And there's many different comprehension strategies that are involved in this, and this is again a big part of this particular program. You'll see at the bottom of the page here a word, and I'm going to give you a moment here to figure out how do you pronounce this word. This word is what we call a nonsense word. There is no word. But if you attempted to sound it out and came up with something like megalotaxomosity, that means that you probably have some pretty strong phonics skills. That you are able to break that word down into parts, into sounds, and figure out what that word is saying. What we have found, as I mentioned earlier, that some of our kids have a hard time figuring out nonsense words like that. Now, obviously they're not going to see that in their reading, but where this comes into play is that they may be introduced to a word that they've not seen before. Some of our kids have learned to read because they are what we call sight readers. In other words, things like flashcards might have been used when they were younger, where it would show a flashcard of a cat. And so they memorize that CAT is cat, or dog, or hat, or some various other types of words. And kids can learn how to read based on sight words, and they will show up over time becoming very competent in their reading until they get to words that they have not seen before. And as I mentioned earlier, we are starting to see that more and more in second grade, where kids are introduced to science words or longer words in their higher level reading that they cannot sound out. And so, as you can see in the red, research indicates that skillful readers irrepressibly sound out words. And that is a skill that we're hoping to really have our kids master before they leave Wildwood. Ultimately, our hope is that a child would be able to sound out a word such as this by the time they leave us in second grade. Read Well is also broken down by grade level, and it is what we call a parallel program. Meaning that if you look at the bottom there in the yellow, Read Well Kindergarten in its small groups has 20 units. However, if you look with the arrow going above, there is some overlap between what is taught in the higher level kindergarten groups with what's taught in the lower level first grade. And then if you go over to your right a little bit, you'll see an arrow with the orange first grade, upper level, probably in the areas of units 35, 36, 37, 38, will correspond to what is being taught in Read Well 2 Fluency Foundations. If we have a first grade student who is in Read Well Plus, which is our higher level, you'll see that there is some corresponding units in Read Well 2 at the lower level, and then that child would move forward. And what's neat about this is that this is a strong way for us to make sure in transitional years that a child is not missing any of those foundational skills. Our assessments will show it, but also our units will show what that child has been exposed to and where we can pick off where they left off. On here, on this next slide, is an example of scaffolding. This topic happens to be main idea. Scaffolding simply means building up to a higher level. So this example shows a startup unit, which is activity 1, where you see the main idea as a picture of a cat sleeping, and the child is simply asked to write what the main point of that picture. But then it moves into the main idea and supporting details, which in this case happens to be Unit 9. And then as you can see, going on to Unit 19, much more detail, but still the idea is focused on what is the main idea of this story, which in this example, Unit 19 gets into some comprehension. This would be an example of what would happen to a child as they go through the program and the natural scaffolding that takes place. Again, same concept, but at a higher level. This is another example of integrating reading and writing. Our kids will be writing. Now, one thing that we will continue to do next year is we will continue to use our Being a Writer program. We received great success last year. Our kids loved it, and our teachers felt it was very effective in helping our kids develop strong reading skills. And so we are going to integrate our Being a Writer with our Read Well program. When we met with the authors out in Portland, we asked them to give us some advice about how to proceed with this. And the bullets that are on there are the 3 pieces that they adamantly shared with us. One is trust the curriculum. It works. Research is showing it. The results in other districts are showing it. Trust the curriculum. Second of all, trust the process, meaning trust what the assessments are telling us, trust the fact that these kids need and must have those foundational skills strongly entrenched before you move them. Which leads us into that third bullet. place conservatively, and move appropriately when mastery is achieved. And we are following those guidelines, and especially with our initial placements this year, is that we are placing kids very conservatively to make sure that the foundational skills are strong. And then when the child proves to us that those baseline skills are solidly in place, then we will move them to their next level. What will stay the same for us at Wildwood and for our kids? We will continue with our flexible literacy groups. We will continue our Being a Writer writing curriculum. We are going to continue to use our NWA MAP assessments 3 times a year. We will be monitoring, again, 3 times a year with a school-wide fluency assessment. And we've changed that to a DIVLS this year, which is, for most of you, probably meaningless. But really what it does is it helps us measure how fluent our kids are reading. And I want to add a piece here, why fluency is so important. Again, research is showing that kids who are not fluent readers, meaning that they really struggle with sounding out words. It takes them a long time, for example, to read a sentence because they're working so hard on sounding out each word. And when that happens, comprehension is very difficult because the child's energies are going so much towards sounding out the words that oftentimes by the time they're done with that sentence, they can't remember or they don't know what that sentence is even about. Our goal is to get the kids to a point where they can read fluently so that those kids can read those sentences without a lot of effort, and then they can start concentrating on what did it mean. And that's why we are placing a high emphasis on working with our kids on fluency skills, phonics with the sounds, and then efficiently and effectively putting those sounds together in an easy way to form words and sentences so that the comprehension will come with it. What will be different? We will use the Read Well assessment system to monitor our kids, but we will no longer be using the Rigby benchmarks. Some of you might recall getting information from teachers stating that your child is reading at a level 12 or a level 14 or level 20. We will not be using that Rigby benchmark system any longer. We will be using our own system, part of Read Well, and what we're looking at, and this is going to take us a little time, is to do any correlating with some of the outside books that we have in terms of what would be appropriate for our kids to read if they want to read at home. That'll take us a little time to connect up with. One thing that will also be different is a strong parent link via the website to a Read Well enrichment program. It's called Ticket to Read. And on their website, which I'll give you the address here shortly, there is a fun activity for kids to go online at any computer where you can connect up with the internet and go through a reading and phonics program in a fun way. And each child will receive an ID number and password coming up here in a few weeks, where they can access Ticket to Read and take a small assessment online to see kind of where they can start. And then the program will provide activities for the children on phonics skills, reading skills, and other things that they can do at home and monitor progress. This is new to many of you, and the initial feelings about it right now from a few is that it is outstanding and the kids love it. From a spelling standpoint, we are moving away from memorizing lists. And as we have found, the old standard way that many of us learned how to spell was memorizing a list of 12 to 20 words and rattle them off on Fridays. We'll do a little bit of, this is going to be a transition, so there'll be a little bit of memorizing, but however, what we are moving towards is teaching the children the process of putting words or segmenting words into parts and their sounds, and then writing those sounds into words. So for example, if a teacher has been working on the concept of double E, instead of just putting a whole bunch of words on a list to memorize that have a double E, the teacher might say, can you spell sweet? Can you spell meat? can you spell tweet? And it's the kids who need to put the sounds together to form a word with that double E sound. And then finally, homework is going to be different. There will be homework with Read Well, but the homework is going to be reinforcing homework. It is not going to be new knowledge. And so what the homework will really entail is concepts and ideas that were taught either that particular day or that particular week for the child to take home and reinforce what they have already learned. Our hope is that the homework is easy, meaning that they have developed those skills and they have learned how to do that particular concept. But this will come almost nightly in terms of some specific things that the kids can be working on. This happens to be one of the areas that we heard a lot of positive comments last year when we were piloting the program, that the parents found the homework to be very, very helpful. As I mentioned to you, Ticket to Read is an outside program, part of the Read Well program, but it's something you can access at home. It is a web-based skill builder that invites students to read hundreds of engaging and informative passages and become more fluent and learn more vocabulary words and comprehend more about the world around them. Now that is a quote taken directly from the Read Well site. But if you do go to their site, which is at this address, you'll see on the right-hand side, this is their home page, you'll see on the right-hand side an opportunity to see what Ticket to Read is all about. There's a little clip there that I would invite you to click onto and just kind of see for yourself what Ticket to Read is all about. It's pretty engaging and it's fun to do. And as I mentioned to you, our kids will be receiving passwords so that they will have their own individual link to that particular site, and they can again tap into it wherever they can tap into the internet. Well, this ends our performance on the Read Well curriculum. I hope I've been able to answer most of your questions. One of the things that I really need your help, however, is this. Our teachers are working extremely hard to try to learn this curriculum. For many, it's a new process for them, and they are working to try to stay ahead of the kids and so that they know and feel confident in what they're working with. However, I think I'd be honest in saying that there's a fair amount of stress that teachers are feeling right now because, in all honesty, teachers and principals want to have all the answers. And we want to be able to know everything that we can anticipate for our children. And when we've taught a curriculum for many years, that type of anticipation is fairly easy for us because we know what to expect. With the new curriculum, and not having gone through it for 1 year, we're not quite sure totally what to expect down the road yet. So I'm asking parents and visitors to please be patient with us as we work through this. Each week we are getting more and more comfortable with it, and we're understanding better the format that it's laid out, and really starting to see more and more of the bigger picture of what Read Well is all about. Your kids are in great hands. We have all the confidence in the world that the kids are going to do well with this program, and we are anxiously excited to see how this all works. If by chance you have any further questions about Read Well, feel free to contact your teacher, or feel free to contact me, Mark Hamre, at Wildwood Elementary. Thank you very much, and I hope you enjoyed this presentation.